JK Rowling is on a mission to stand up to the transgender. The author of the iconic Harry Potter series and darling of the literary world has come under fire in recent years for refusing to give lip service to the woke transgender. Sky News All-Stars Liz Storer, Caleb Bond and Esther Krakue ask whether JK Rowling will face dire consequences for her courageous anti-trans stance. JK Rowling has had enough of the transgender. The celebrated author has been attacked for her blunt views on trans women in sport and trans activists, forcing their views on ordinary people. But despite the abuse she's experienced in traditional and social media, she's vowed to continue her fight. Rowling's latest fight is against the government of Scotland, who passed a new hate crime law. JK Rowling mocked the law and challenged police to arrest her for the tweets that she published.
JK Rowling is back in the headlines for challenging police in Scotland to arrest her. The Harry Potter author posted on social media saying she looks forward to being arrested while pointing out her major concerns over a new law that has come into effect in Scotland. The Hate Crime and Public Order Act makes it an offence to stir up hatred with threatening or abusive behaviour on the basis of characteristics including age, disability, religion, sexual orientation and transgender identity. But the legislation doesn't specifically ban hatred against women. That's something the Scottish Government claims will be addressed with a separate law against misogyny that is yet to come. Now, JK Rowling has labelled the new law ludicrous and has pointed out its flaws. The 58-year-old author listed several examples of what she could be sent to prison for, and that is for misgendering double rapist Isla Bryson and misgendering 6'5" convicted pedophile Katie Delatowski, who was sent to a women's prison after sexually assaulting a 10-year-old girl in a female bathroom.
So under this new law, conceivably, you could be arrested for calling trans rapist paedophiles men. That is the reality.
Sky News All-Star Liz Storer has called JK Rowling fearless for her courage in defending free speech.
I would follow this woman into battle. Like, seriously, she is fearless. And she rightfully, repeatedly points out, free speech is dead. It's gone and buried if people cannot accurately talk about the practicalities of biological sex and call it as it is. This person is a biological male, this person is a biological female. Those tweets that you were just reading out were actually one of 11. She posted them in a thread. All trans activists, all those who had been convicted of really heinous crimes, but all called women by the media in Scotland. And she's also made famous the hashtag, "These are not our crimes," our being women's crimes. Why are you saying that these have been committed by women? Also pointed out how that skews the crime statistics in terms of blaming things on women that have been committed by biological males. I absolutely love it when one of these people with the clout is literally taunting the lawmakers, saying, okay, these hate speech laws have just come into effect. I'm going to set a precedent straight off the bat. Come and get me. Because again, this will set such an important precedent, because for future years, while these laws are in place, others can be like, well, you didn't prosecute JK Rowling, and she still says what a woman is. But what is frightening is for the everyday person, for you and I, that's out of the question. When we look at the injustices like Musk defending free speech, that's great. He's got the money to do it.
Sky News All-Star Esther Kerr fears JK Rowling will find herself on the wrong side of the law, being made an example of by Scottish authorities.
The idea that for some reason now you have this protected group of people that can sue people for feeling offended, and the police are forced to take action, which by the way is completely baffling to me because they're basically doing prison spaces in Scotland, is ludicrous. And unfortunately, I feel like JK Rowling will become the poster girl for this sort of legislation. I do believe that at some point she will find herself on the wrong side of the law, because this legislation is completely impractical. You have to be able to assert certain truths without fearing that the police are going to arrest you because someone could be offended.
Sky News All-Star Caleb Bond says this law sets a dangerous precedent that will spell the end of free speech beyond Scotland into the future.
This is Scotland right now, but you'd have to be a dill to think this is not going to come to the rest of the world. If it is a hate crime to make a comment like that, or to supposedly incite hatred, and again, we talked last night about hate crimes and hate speech, right? It's one thing to incite violence. It's one thing to incite some sort of physical damage to someone. It's one thing to reveal what their address is and whatever, and encourage people to go around and knock on their door and harass their family. But words are simply words. And when you start saying this is a hate crime to utter certain words, you can start with certain things that we might all agree are pretty awful and you probably shouldn't say them. But then that leads to that, and then that, and then that. And then all of a sudden, it's a hate crime to say you don't like ice cream.
Sky News contributor Michael Kroger agrees, saying hurting someone's feelings cannot be a criminal offence.
Of course, JK Rowling should be able to say, I believe there are two sexes. She's not inciting hatred. She's not inciting violence. She's expressing an opinion. An Islamic preacher, as I said, who gets up in a mosque and says death to Jews, basically, that crosses the line. That's hate speech. That's incitement to violence. That should be criminalised. But, you know, hurting someone's feelings cannot be a criminal offence. Otherwise, all free speech dies in Western democracies. And one of the great strengths of our democracies is diversity of opinion, which is what you don't see in China, you don't see in North Korea, you don't see in Russia, and you don't see in Iran, you don't see in Palestine, by the way, in the West Bank or in Gaza. You don't see free speech. So that's where I draw the line. And governments who act in an extreme manner, like the Scottish government, they can create just a world of litigation for years to come, and it'll be very damaging to the country.
JK Rowling has had strong support for her crusade against the Scottish laws. Satirist Constantine Kissing put his support behind Rowling, saying, "If only more rich and famous people had JK Rowling's balls, we would never have been where we are in the first place." The authoritarianism, denial of reality and lunacy we now see are the result of cowardice. Examples like JK and Elon are what we need more of. And commentator Megyn Kelly agrees, but goes further to warn the United States against falling into the trap that will eventually lead to limitations placed on freedom of speech, just like in Scotland.
But far too many blue states are coming dangerously close to Scotland, suggesting hostile work environments result from, quote, misgendering a colleague, for example. We've seen that in California and other places. Right now, the U.S. Supreme Court is holding the line. It ruled last summer in 303 Creative, which we covered here on the show, that governments may not compel speech by forcing citizens to speak messages they do not wish to speak. But make no mistake, we are heading for a legal showdown on this issue here in America. And it is imperative that we pay attention.
But despite the backlash from a small and vocal sector of social media, JK Rowling is not backing down and can count on the support of some powerful allies, explains Sky News All-Star James McPherson.
Well, Harry Potter author JK Rowling and Ricky Gervais have proved that if you stand up to the woke, eventually you win. JK Rowling's book sales went from $7 million to $11.9 million worth last year. This despite the fact she was attacked by trans activists because she said that women deserve their own private spaces. As for Ricky Gervais, well, he's just won Best Stand-Up Comedy Series at the Golden Globes.